And now that we are done talking about the two championship fights in the UFC 304 main and co-main event, we will get into the rest of the card because we've got a pretty stacked card full of British mixed martial arts talent and some seasoned veterans as well from all across the world. There's championship potential in terms of number one contenders on this card as well. So we have a lot to go over. It starts in the featured bout of the evening. Paddy the baddie is back, and he's taking on King Green. The 37-year-old King Green, formerly known as Bobby Green, the number 15th ranked lightweight in the world, will return and keep his activity going here. He fought 3 times in 2022, 4 times in 2023, and this will be his second fight of 2024 so far. We saw him get a big victory over Jim Miller at UFC 300, and he's won 3 of his last 4 fights. The only loss to Jalen Turner, another ranked lightweight. And for Paddy the Paddy Pimblett, who debuted in the UFC back in September of 2021, he has rallied off 5 straight victories in the promotion, a perfect 5-0 start, and now he will get his biggest test to date with King Green. We look at this stretch of fights for Paddy. He's had great performances. He's had a couple worrisome performances if you're a fan of Paddy. But when I say worrisome, it's not necessarily that he's fighting bad. Maybe he's just not fighting as good as people wish him to. Because, look, he's got 3 finishes in the UFC at the end of the day. But these latter 2 fights are the ones that really, I think, stick out to people. The first is Jared Gordon. That was in December of 2022. He won a unanimous decision. A lot of people, including myself and including Noah at the time, if I'm not mistaken, believe that Jared Gordon got robbed in that fight. Yes, I said the R word. A robbery was happening there. Jared Gordon probably should have got the nod in that fight, but a win is a win nonetheless on the record books. And then Paddy had a 1-year layoff and fought in December of 2023 at UFC 296 against Tony Ferguson. And we know the stretch that Tony Ferguson has been on, 7-8 losses in a row now at this point. So people were thinking Paddy should not only beat Tony, beat him convincingly and get a finish. And then that is not what happened. Paddy instead got another decision in a fight that did not have a lot of action, was not very memorable, and not very fan friendly, especially for what Paddy has been able to do with his performances in the past. So is that a sign that we've seen the most of Paddy Pimblett? Have we seen him reach his ceiling, if you will, already? What are we at here? 29 years old. So in theory, he should be entering his prime years these next 2, 3, 4 years. But have we kind of seen him meet his match? Is Bobby King Green now known as, going to be the biggest step up and maybe the fight that Paddy cannot get past? Is this going to be the fight where he gets exposed, as people like to say, quote unquote here? I think there is potential for that. We've seen Paddy take big shots in his 5 UFC fights. We've seen him had to, survive getting rocked very badly. And King Green does not play when it's on the feet. He's one of the most elusive, technical boxers, precise boxers in the lightweight division. If this fight stays standing, it could be real problems for Paddy the Baddy. But if Paddy can get this fight to the ground, that is where we could see him thrive. I think people tend to forget just how damn good Paddy is on the ground. At the end of the day, he's got more submissions than knockouts. 9 subs to 6 knockouts for 15 finishes and 21 victories for the Baddy. If he gets Bobby King Green down to the ground, it could be a big problem. But if King Green can survive, even to get it to a round 2 or get it to round 3, every round starts on the feet. And eventually you'd have to think that the veteran Green will be able to stuff some takedowns. So does that mean Paddy should look to put King Green away early? Otherwise, the longer this fight goes, the longer and the more that I would favor King Green. I'm real curious to hear from you guys with your thoughts on this fight. What do you think? What do you make of Paddy Pimblett and King Green here? Is this the moment where we will see Paddy Pimblett falter and suffer his first UFC loss? Or will it be the biggest victory of his career. Will he launch himself into the UFC lightweight rankings and what would be his sixth straight victory at 155 pounds? And if King Green wins and halts momentum of another prospect, let us not forget he just did that last year to Grant Dawson, and it only took him 33 seconds to get that knockout there. He is dangerous, and you cannot sleep on him. I think we're in for a treat here. But this is another one where, similar to the main event, I feel like the winner will have a very convincing outing. Next on this 14 fight card, we will move to the middleweight division where Christian Leroy Duncan will be taking on Gregory RoboCop Rodrigues, a late addition, not to the card, but to the main card. This actually took the place of a potential number one contender fight happening now in the early prelims between Muhammad Mokaev and Manel Kape, but we'll get to that fight here in a few minutes. Let's start with this one because it's going to be violent. Christian Leroy Duncan is 10-1 with 9 finishes to his name, and he's 3-1 so far in his very short UFC career. He debuted last March, had a very active 2023 going 2-1. The only loss was to Armin Petrosian, and he fought March 2nd and got a victory over Claudio Ribeiro. So he's back again for the second time this year, looking to make it 4-1 in the UFC and etch himself one step closer to the middleweight rankings. And standing in his way is the RoboCop, Gregory Rodrigues, 15-5, 13 finishes, only 4 decisions ever. He doesn't know what a boring fight is. He's on a 2-fight win streak. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights. And look at this right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight fights, all ending via KO, TKO. Only 2 of those 5 made it out of the first round. And if you go before that, yeah, he had a split decision loss to Armin Petrosian, but then we have another knockout, another knockout, another knockout. He's an LFA alum. He's a Dana White Contender Series alum. This fight is going to be very fun for as little or as long as it lasts. And we've got a real big one here in the featherweight division. We've got the number 6 ranked Arnold Allen taking on the number 10 ranked Giga Chikadze. This fight is somehow flying under the radar. This is a low-key fight of the night. This is 6 versus 10. Big implications for the winner and loser of this matchup. This is fun. Arnold Allen debuted in the UFC way back in 2015. Crazy, it was over 9 years ago. And he started his career in the company 10-0, 10 straight victories. And we've got good wins in there. Gilbert Melendez, Sadiq Youssef, Dan Hooker, Calvin Kattar. But then he ran into the former champion Max Holloway in April of last year and lost a unanimous decision. Tried to bounce back in January of this year, the first pay-per-view of the year in Canada, UFC 297. He went up against the undefeated Movsar Evloev and lost a unanimous decision. However, it was competitive. It was close. I believe that Arnold even took a round in that fight. But regardless, he is entering this fight now on a 2-fight skid. But he is still just 30 years of age. So he debuted back in the UFC when he was only 21 years old, could just then legally drink a beer, even though over there in England, do you guys drink sooner than 21? It's always a party over there, I feel like, is what I hear. So let me know if you're from England and you're watching this. So big fight for almighty Arnold Allen to not go on a 3-fight skid, but to bounce back and beat a dangerous top 10 opponent, Giga Chikadze. Giga suffered a brutal beatdown loss in January of 2022 to Calvin Kattar, and we did not see him return until August of 2023. But in that fight, he got a victory over Alex Caceres, who was riding a ton of momentum at the time. And before that loss to Calvin Kattar, I mixed together their last names. Giga started his UFC career 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0, and he had great victories as well. The 2 biggest, Cub Swanson and Edson Barboza, both of those were vicious TKO finishes. So while Calvin Kattar halted the momentum, Giga at 35 years old, yeah, maybe on the tail end of his prime, but he can still be a dangerous threat. But to be a threat, to approach the title contention discussion, he has to first beat Arnold Allen. And I think it's actually a really interesting fight here because we know Giga's known for the Giga kick, that nasty kick that he throws to the liver. He's a very, very good technical kickboxer with nasty, sneaky power, dare I say. And Arnold Allen is just kind of this well-rounded Swiss Army knife. There's not a specific area where I feel like he absolutely excels and is better than everyone else. but there's also not an area where I feel that he is super weak or that he can be exposed of easily. And that's what I think is very interesting, because we have a clear man that is deadly in the striking versus someone who maybe not be deadly in the striking, but at the end of the day, he's damn well rounded and has 11 finishes to his own right out of his 19 victories. This is a big, big fight in the featherweight division. People, give it some respect. Don't sleep on these two guys. Let's go. And then lastly, in terms of at storylines or what's at stake, I want to touch on one more, and then I'll briefly mention some other fights that I think will be fun. I think that's what I want to start doing here on the show is I'll go in depth X's and O's storylines, etc., on the fights that are the most important or intriguing to myself, but then I'll also give honorable mentions in terms of what I think will be fun fights. So we will go to the number 6 ranked flyweight in the world, Muhammad Mokaev, undefeated, versus the number 8 ranked Manel Kape. I believe that the winner of this will be next for Alexandre Pantoja. This will be the final fight for Muhammad Mokaev before he turns 24 years old. That is mind-boggling that I just said that on here. He's 12-0 with 8 finishes to his name, a very, very deep amateur career. This guy is a next level prospect. Unlike many that we've seen the past few years in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, he debuted back in March of 2022, and he has went 6-0 in the UFC with 4 finishes. All of them have been against good competition too, because when we look at the flyweight division, it is not very deep. There's like 20, 25 fighters, 30 at max in this weight class. So all of the people he's beaten, Cody Durden, Charles Johnson, Malcolm Gordon, Tim Elliott, Alex Perez, these are people that we have heard of, people that have been in the rankings, people that are currently still in the rankings. Look at Alex Perez. Alex Perez bounced back like a month later from that fight with Mokaev and got a vicious knockout over Matthias Nicolau, and then has fought again and lost to Tatsuro Taira, the other undefeated phenom in this weight class right now, paired with Mokaev. So Mokaev is staying active. He's getting fights in, and none bigger than this one right here against Manel Kape, who also had a very storied background when he debuted in the UFC. Manel Kape was a very highly touted name, free agent signing, if you will, when he joined the UFC back in 2021. He was a former Rizin champion, the star boy known for his flashy style, his big finishes, his power that he carries it down at 125. But he started his UFC career 0-2. But you got to look at those losses, right? It is to the now current champion, Alexandre Pantoja. That was his debut fight in the organization, and then he lost a razor-close split decision against Matthias Nicolau, who is still in the rankings, and at one point, had he not lost to Alex Perez, would have likely been next for the champion, Pantoja. But since then, he's righted the wrongs, not outside of the cage, but at least in the cage, racking off 4 straight victories, 2 knockouts during that stretch, in a couple of ranked fighters, especially at the time when he fought them. But he beat Ode Osborne, Zhalgas Zhumagulov, David Dvorak, and most recently in September, Felipe Dos Santos. However, Manel Kape has had a lot of issues outside of the cage, not all of them due to his detriment, right? Not all of them are on him. Fight cancellations, weight misses from himself, weight misses from his opponents. He's had fights fall off the books that have kept him from really taking the next step in growing his stardom, in growing his fan base for the UFC, and also just in growing his career with the company and getting to the top of the ladder quicker than some of these other guys that have came in later than him but have risen quicker. So this is a very good fight because Mokaev is an elite level grappler, an elite level wrestler. No one has been able to really stop him outside of Alex Perez. And even still, Alex Perez didn't stop him enough. Mokaev still got the victory there, even though some people feel that Perez won that fight. I did not. Manel Kape, though, is super well-rounded, kind of like the fight I just talked about with Giga and Arnold Allen, right? We have someone who is very, very good in one area, can absolutely ragdoll his opponents, and the other doesn't necessarily shine or exceed in any one specific area, but he also doesn't have any glaring weaknesses in any areas as well. Manel Kape has 11 knockouts, he has 5 submissions, and he's only been finished twice in his 6 professional losses. But keep in mind, both of his losses are via submission. So if Mokaev gets this fight down to the ground, look for him to take advantage of it while he has it there and look for a submission. And if it stays on the feet, if Manel Kape can defend the takedowns of Mokaev, I believe things get very, very interesting because he has nasty power to be a flyweight. So it can be very, very fun, or it can be another absolute just, what's the word? Ragdolling. Yeah, let's just go with that word again for Muhammad Mokaev. Whether he wins, whether Manel Kape wins, the winner of this fight is next for Alexandre Pantoja. And for the rest of the card, I just want to give some love to these fighters, briefly mention some other very fun fights. Nathaniel Wood and Daniel Pineda cap off the regular prelims. Molly McCann is taking on Bruna Brazil. Molly looking absolutely shredded coming into this fight week. We know that she came back down to 115 in her last fight and got a very good win. Now she's going to make it 2-0 in this new part of her career, this new chapter of her career. Oban Elliott and Preston Parsons is going to be sloppy, and it's going to be nasty. It's going to be a slugfest. An absolute dogfight is what you can expect from those guys. And Sam Patterson versus Kiefer Crosby. Don't blink because it's probably going to end pretty quick. So let me know in the comments below all of your thoughts, all of your predictions for UFC 304, for the title fights, for the prelims, for the main card. Give me your bets. What are you riding with? Are you doing an all British parlay? I could maybe dabble into that too. A lot of them are favorites on this card. I think we're in store for a very, very fun night. Every time the UFC is in England, the crowd is absolutely bananas. And here, with a stacked card like this, they have no reason not to be bananas once again. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. You can also join the community on social media at the BAJ MMA. And you can follow the show on your favorite audio listening platform. If you're a podcast listener, I release those episodes every Friday and Monday. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the fights, and I will see you in the next video.